you very much for having me here today and inviting us to be part of this seminar. My name's Susan Holtham. I work at Tate in the Media and Audiences department, and this afternoon I'm going to talk to you about a project we ran spring to summer this year called BMW Tate Live Performance Room. But first, I'll just talk to you a bit about Tate and our mission. So the gallery's mission is to increase public knowledge, understanding and enjoyment of British modern and contemporary art. And it's from this stance that everything we do, that's all right. Live, it's all live. Everything we do is to try and get closer to this mission. So whether it's publishing articles or blogs on our Tate website, or to having artist films or documentaries on the Tate channel, or to the recent and current series of live performance at the Tanks at Tate Modern. It's all these different ways that we look to get closer to increasing public knowledge in British modern contemporary art. So just to have a look at where our audience are. There's three areas that we looked at for our audience in relation to this project, and we know that we have visitors who come to the gallery, there's visitors who approach us through our website, and there's visitors who also come to us through social networking sites. And it may well be the case that people come to the gallery, but they may never look at our website, or they may know us through Facebook and are aware of us, but might not have a physical visit to the gallery. And it's the audiences in the yellow and red areas that overlap between online and social networking sites that we thought the performance room would be a good way to kind of look at those people and reach those people who basically won't be coming to the gallery necessarily. So what is BMW Tate Live Performance Room? It's a series of live online performances that we had streamed on the Tate's YouTube channel in partnership with BMW. We have a 4-year partnership with BMW that focuses on performance, interdisciplinary art in the digital space. And this series of live performances were commissioned and conceived exclusively for the online space. It's the first artistic program that was commissioned, first artistic program exclusively for live web broadcast. You know, this is something that other art galleries aren't doing, that we know of, and it's a first for us. And from this point, you might think, well, why live streaming? Why have streaming live online? And for us, it's a way to reach a global community of people to view an artwork simultaneously at once at the same time, and kind of use that as an experiment. It's a way to engage with international audiences, bringing people who might not be able to come to the gallery, and again, to view an artwork online. And it's, you know, it's a completely new way of interacting with an artist and an artwork. And also the simple reason that you have capacity to reach a lot more people than you would do, say, in the Turbine Hall. You can have a thousand people who see a live art performance, and you know, here there's just the capacity to reach a lot more people at the same time beyond the accommodation of the gallery space. So to go in more detail, it's one series. We've had one series so far. There are 4 performances, each starting at 8 o'clock BST. 4 different artists who varied in their type of practice. The first performance is by Jerome, Pablo Bronstein is the second performance, then Emily Royston and Harold Fletcher. And each performance, they're a month apart. And in terms of the live stream, so it's 8 o'clock in the UK, it's about 11 p.m. in Russia and 3 p.m. on the east coast of the USA. So that was something we had to think about, consideration of doing a live stream, and if you want international audiences, are people going to be able to watch it, or will they be asleep? So now I'm just going to show you snippets of the live performance as part of the trailer which we put out on our social networking sites a few weeks prior to the first performance.
Audiences today, worldwide, they want to participate. They want to establish direct contact. It can only be experienced live by you, an online audience. What these artists are going to do is to create a performance for the camera, which is going to be streamed both on the Tate website and on YouTube. And this time, there is no filter, there is no such a thing as editing, and of course there is no censorship. You will be able to watch these projects, these movements, live, just as they were conceived and performed by the artist. After watching the performance, you can join the conversation on Facebook or Twitter. BMW Tate Live Performance Room, March 22nd, 2012.
So that was the director of Tate Modern, Chris Durkon, who gave an introduction to the project, which we would show on Facebook and for people to get an idea about what is BMW Tate Live. So I'd like to pick up where Chris mentioned about joining the conversation. That was a key part of why we did this project. But I'll bring that up again in a moment. But firstly, just like to talk about what I called the parameters for performance. As Chris outlined there, there were certain criteria that we gave each artist for each performance. There was one artist, one performance, one camera, one in-gallery space, and no physical audience, so there would be absolutely no one else in the room apart from the performer and or the artist. And it was broadcast only online, so there isn't any interaction with the in-gallery experience apart from the fact that it was filmed at Tate Modern. And in this sense, it's an experiment. It's an experiment for us, our curatorial team, our production team, and also for the artist. And we work with artists who are up for the experiment and up for that challenge of live streaming, something they're not used to in a gallery environment. And by being broadcast only online, we use social networks and use the two hashtags, which I'll show you in a moment, to encourage chats by the online audience in the performance, and also to ask questions and pose questions to the artist and curator in the Q&A session, which happened afterwards. So who are our audience? For this project, our audience, they're a new specialist niche audience, so there may be people who are advocates of the artists, who follow the artist and part of the artist community. So they may know of Tate, they may not, but they'll certainly be a fan of the artist, and they're in addition to the existing Tate audience, so people who are familiar with us already. Where are they? They're national, international, and around the world. What do they want? For us, we felt people want to access performance art, give a response and have it heard, and that's something that we don't think it's easy to do, or a lot of people do. It may be the case you watch a live performance in a gallery space, but having that dialogue isn't something that that kind of arrangement allows very easily. So by having online the conversation is something that was important for us. And where do they want it? Online. We used our Tate channel on YouTube as a popular, convenient channel for this, deliberately rather than the Tate online website. So there's three live elements, as I mentioned. There's the live artist performance, the live Q&A with artists and curators. Then underpinning the whole thing is the live commenting and question stream, which you could say is as much part of the performance itself. And we had two hashtags to prompt the conversation. So just to talk about the actual Tate channel YouTube page, we work with a team called Cycle Interactive. They custom built and developed our page, and they ran and provided tech support for it too. And there's kind of 5 areas to the page. There's the video player. There's a widget called Join the Conversation. I think we touched upon that earlier. Carol mentioned about joining the conversation. So we asked people to log in via their Google Plus account, Facebook or Twitter, and they could do that directly onto the page itself, so they wouldn't have to leave it or navigate elsewhere. So here we asked people to leave a comment or ask a question. Immediately the hashtag is brought there already for them, and just underneath the video player, we have our top questions, and these were voted for at the time of the event. So you can't you know, these are taken post-event, so you can't see the liveness of it anymore, but there'll be a little thumbs up. You can have a vote for your looking at the most recent questions. And so these questions had been approved beforehand, so they had been moderated. But then just underneath where you would write your comment after logging in on the social network, it had a live feed aggregated from Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. So they were unapproved, as it were. So they were very live, and to be very lively placed on the site, say 10 minutes prior to performance starting, and a lot of activity happening. And there's also just underneath there, like having a Tate presence also on the page. So people kind of get that it's a Tate project if they weren't aware of that, and also to kind of guide what was about to happen or give people a little bit of context there. So I'm just going to talk a bit more now about the performance and the Q&A session. So on the live event on the evening, we worked with a team called Streaming Tank, and they provided the live video stream for us. So they were an external team, and then the Tate team was relatively small. There'd be the 2 curators, as well as 2 assistant curators. We worked with an external director, the producer, a producer of interactive media, and assistant, who is myself. And together, we'd work with Streaming Tank for each live event. So it's a relatively small team, but for the first performance, we scaled up the team, and it was quite a large operation, because we included, it was a slightly different setup. We had a presenter, and we cut it with VT and like video footage, which I'll show you in a second. But just in terms of how we literally did it, you can see the 2 curators have iPads there. Myself and the producer, maybe another assistant, we'd come together and have a shared document with our own individual laptops, and we'll pull comments and questions from Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And simply using a Skype app, we would send them through to Catherine and Catherine. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tate Modern, but where we were, where the performance room was and the production room next door, it's at the basement of the turbine hall, so pretty much Wi-Fi is not going to happen. There's a few hitches with that, and even 3G was problematic, so having 2 iPads actually worked really well if one happened to drop out. So it was relatively, in that sense, you know, we were quite, I think, kind of lo-fi, and just, we kind of made the best of it, and quite lucky as well, I think. But Streaming Tank were a really good team to work with as well, because they were used to live streaming for various things outside of the art gallery context. Here's a slide just showing the back-end comment moderation. We would have a question of content, as well as the ID of who asked the question. That's something that we didn't have initially on the first performance, and that proved to be something actually quite important that gave the artist something to actually know that there's a person watching and they have a name and they have an individual question when we had the live Q&A session. So that was quite important, and you can see on the right-hand side how many votes some of the comments got that led to the top questions on the page. And for us, it was all a huge experiment, and in terms of moderating comments, the performance, there was a rehearsal about half an hour before the live event, so there was quite a small window to be able to kind of figure out how you might guide questions to the artist and the curator to make an interesting conversation that looked at their practice as well as the wider context of live art, and to just make it engaging to watch as well, and an easy flow of conversation. Yeah, so it's a different experience for us all, and I think by the 4th performance we'd kind of got our heads around it all. So now I'm just going to give you a quick case study of each of the 4 performances, because they varied quite a bit. So Jerome was the first performer. He's a choreographer and dancer from France, and his work for Performance Room was a twist on his 1997 performance of Shirtology. And here he has one performer who reveals T-shirts, many layers of T-shirts, and his work's often humorous and looks at popular culture. And I'll just show you a short clip.
Hello, you've just seen the very first live performance in this new Tate series exploring performance art. Over the next few months, we're going to be inviting leading performers from across the world to create new, exciting, exclusive performances and come here and answer your questions at Tate Modern. In the next few minutes, we're going to be meeting Jerome, the artist and choreographer responsible for the piece that you just saw, entitled Shirtology at Tate. But before you get the chance to interrogate him, here's a little introduction to Jerome and his work.
So here we would show some archive footage that I've just...
Hello Jerome, thank you very much for being here. First of all, tonight I want to focus on the piece that we've just seen, Shirtology. There are loads of great questions coming through on the iPad from our audience watching on the internet. But first of all, I wanted to ask you, you've been making the Shirtology pieces for a while now, so where did they come from? What was their origin?
Well, it's my third piece.
We've still got lots of great questions coming through, but I'm going to stop there for a moment, because in a minute we're going to meet the two curators from Tate who are responsible for programming this series. But before they come and join us, here is a brief run-through of some highlights from Tate, which give a pretty good idea of the diversity of performance art. As you just saw, there is an astonishing scope to what performance art can be, and that's something that we can now discuss with the people who've just joined us, Catherine Wood and Kathy Noble from the Tate. Now don't forget, you can still send in questions through Facebook, Google+, Twitter and YouTube. But I had a question, which is, Catherine, why did you decide to do a series of live performance art which can only be seen on the internet?
I guess part of it is I was always a bit suspicious of the idea of kind of classic performance art in the 60s and 70s, that it was all about the intimate, authentic experience of being in the same room with the performer. They were often naked and there was often...
Clipped her off just at the wrong moment there. Yeah, Catherine raises a great point. This is the first of the series, so a lot of the discussion was about what is live art, what is live performance, what are you trying to say here? And I think we're very much in this project trying to give people an understanding of what is kind of contemporary live performance, and isn't necessarily something that's associated with risk or danger or nudity, and there's other ways and means, and just to experiment with what that is. And I mentioned before the inclusion of the username, so that wasn't functioning at this point. Here are some of the comments that we had. How are we supposed to applaud? What is live? And when these came up in the conversation, there was points that we found in feedback that people weren't sure whether this is part of an online conversation or this is part of the conversation between the artist and the curators, so that's something we wanted to make sure was clear in the next series of performances. So we would try and structure the conversation in terms of moderation and comments in 3 parts. Initially, questions on the artist's practice, questions on the live performance itself, and questions on what is live art, what is live performance, what is live art. So we try to frame it in that way to keep it interesting, and also to have a way to round off the conversation after at the end of the Q&A. And I thought it was quite interesting that Jerome mentioned in the theatre, people are laughing, we feel the dialogue, but here we don't know, it's a new way to communicate. At that point, he was the first artist to take part in this programme. He had no idea, and we had no idea about how people would react and how people would communicate. And he said something really nice, people can heckle in the theatre, or they could, shout out, but he's there in this room with his performer, and there's no reaction, so that was interesting to see online how people reacted. The second artist is called Pablo Bronstein. He's an Argentinian-born artist, and his work uses architectural design and drawing to engage with the grandeur and imperial past of built architecture, and the built environment. And it was this performance that I felt, and as a team we felt this was a great one to watch. He really clearly thought about having a camera in a room, and that's all the tools he's been given. And so he really uses the idea of architecture and sets and props, but in a really simple way that makes it really easy to watch and really easy to get engaged in. Here's just an example of a calling card we would show just before the event on the YouTube channel page. So as if you're watching it.
Change.
So in this second performance, we decided to keep the camera rolling in between the changeover from the performance to the Q&A. And we'd have this overlay again, prompting people to kind of get involved in the conversation, send us your comments and questions. Because something I didn't mention before was with having a presenter and video packages, our audiences, the figures would drop and those points that were taken away from the live action. So we felt this was a better way of doing it. So yeah, that's Pablo taking his makeup off there just before the Q&A. And here's just a card that we show at the end of the performance. So there, the performance, we tried to streamline it more, reduce the mediation between the performance and the Q&A section, and it was a more successful way of doing things. We found that people would watch more continuously, although as the Q&A sessions went on throughout each performance, people would drop off, but at least by making it shorter and more compact, it was something that people would watch for longer. Here's some of the comments that came through. I think because it was so easy to watch, a lot of people almost didn't know what to say about it. There wasn't a huge amount of deeply critical comments, but it was more like your questions on his technique, on his use of props, on his interest in architecture. So they were interesting and light, I think. And he mentioned something really interesting, doing something online, music and play more with a magic box. So that was quite nice. That was quite a nice line you said. But something I didn't show you there was we decided to only have one curator in the Q&A session. So it's just Pablo and one curator. And we felt that from having such a big team in the first performance, we take it down, strip it down to a more intimate conversation. So someone watching online could feel maybe a bit more, that's more intimacy there. Although actually, we then rethought that because the conversation flowed better when there was two curators and they could work off each other and work with the artist and make them feel more at ease as well. The third performance was by an American artist called Emily Royston, and interestingly, in her performance, she had 100 volunteers who were performers in her piece, and she would choreograph them and using markings on the floor to map the way that they went throughout the room, and her volunteers define themselves as queer or feminist, and already, in that sense, she had herself a ready-made community, which made it really interesting on Facebook, Twitter and Google+, particularly Twitter. People were getting in touch or just saying, look out for me, I'm going to be performing. She has this wide community, which really, I think, made an impact on her performance and the Q&A. It was one of the better Q&A sessions of the series, I think, for that reason. Here's a short clip.
That came in next from Elizabeth Bridges, and she said, do you get nervous knowing that you have a live audience even when you can't see them? How does that feel?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think it's almost even a little bit more pressure because you can't see them, so you can't rely on the relationship and the vibes and the...
yeah, you don't get the active response.
Yeah.
You can't feel the presence.
I mean, that's part of the reason that I wanted to work with so many people, so that we could all work on each other, work off of each other.
Thank you, Emily. I think she's really right there, and it really made a difference. Even if it was implicit, we didn't really realise at the time on the evening. It was a really great performance and Q&A session, and when the comments came through, there was a few people that she was like, oh, I know them, oh, great, hi. So that was great to see, and so she could give them a live, direct response, which is something which just doesn't really happen in the usual gallery space. That's exactly the kind of thing that we were looking for and hoping for, and that other people could actually get their questions answered. And as I mentioned before, having Kathy and Catherine there together, the conversation flowed really well, and Emily felt really comfortable. And I think the energy of the group of her volunteers as well just made it for really good responses and a really good Q&A. Here's some of the comments. This is better than EastEnders, yay. Congratulations from Houston, Texas. That was someone who was a friend of hers. And here, having names attributed to the comments really made it feel like you were having a real-life conversation with someone, I think particularly for Emily in this performance. So the final performance is by an artist called Harold Fletcher, and his work's often socially engaged, using people from community as the performer. And in his piece, he worked with a busker named Stanley Prosper, a London busker, and took him from the streets of London and the Tube into performance room. And here's what happened.
Grant thee, Jesus, is my plea. Daily walking across the day, let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Oh, let it be, dear Lord, let it be.
much.
Thank you very much.
I really hope people online could hear your voice as well as we can in the space.
I hope so.
I think by this point we'd really kind of finessed the changeovers, the kind of technicalities between the performance, the Q&A session, and I don't know, maybe it helps that there's only one performer, but there it made for quite seamless watching. You know, in making this presentation, I worked with an editor to edit the films, but here it's just quite easy and quite nice to watch, and that translated through to the viewers online. We had quite just a lot of praise for this performance, and again, not a huge questioning of criticism or questioning of the artist's practice, but just a lot of people who just felt really happy and felt really pleased that Stanley was there. Some people recognise Stanley, so it's great. What's your favourite songs to sing? This guy's great, well played. For us, it was a great way to end the series, but probably not the kind of performance we might do regularly, but it was still an interesting way to see how people would react to it. Harold's part of his practice is looking, well, in this instance, is looking at the internet and the use of the internet and the questioning the value of the internet. So here, but people didn't, they kind of just went straight into the performance and didn't step back and look away. So whether that was good or not, I don't know, but it certainly made people happy, and it made for a really positive way to end the series also. So that's the 4 performances in a largish nutshell. And I'll just give you a bit of background as to how we promoted the series. Our marketing team, digital marketing, we would send out a solus email to our email database, 480,000 people, working with our... I know, of non-members. Looking at, we work with our design team to make quite a simple email bulletin, just saying, you know, BMW Tate Live, this is what it is, here's the time, date, visit us, interact with us. And just below that, we had the teaser trailer with Chris there, and also a widget to add the event to your Outlook calendar. So just quite brief, quite simple, but to the point. And then to provide a bit more context, because again, at the moment, with the Thanks to Tate Modern, you know, live performance, it's an area that not, you know, for the public, it's tricky, and we wanted to make people understand more in terms of watching the films and watching live performances. So we seeded about a week or so before each live event a series of trailers on our Facebook pages. And so for each performance, there'd be a trailer of archive footage and an interview with the artist. And there was also a few films with the curators as well, giving a wider context on live art. We would post on Facebook saying, get ready, watch online this evening. So throughout the day, on the day of the performance, on Twitter, we'd say, we'd give out some reminders that tomorrow, catch BMW Tate Live, what are you up to, love a busker. And in the evening as well, we would say, we're ready for your tweets and messages, 1 hour to go, you know, just ways for people to catch us. And this is an example from Emily's community of people who were saying, tonight, working with Emily live, or get ready to watch it. Live, and that was great because I guess being in the US, you know, having that international audience already there. We just also include pictures of the moderating team, so we would literally be in the room just next door to the performance. So at first that was quite odd, knowing that there's someone taking off the layers of shirts whilst you're there waiting with bated breath for people to engage with us. Streaming tank, a picture of them. And and at the end, we would just say a thank you for watching, thank you for commenting. I think it's important that we, Tate as a voice on the social networks, would give a reply as well, to kind of show that we're not just passive and this is just for you, and the artist, and that we don't have a say or have a response. Although it was, that leads me on to, I think, legacy and future. So this is an experiment for us, and there's going to be a series of performances next year as well, and they're going to be every 2 months instead of every 1 month. So I think one of the challenges with it being every 1 month, every month. There wasn't a lot of time for reflection and a lot of time for looking at what we do with the comments or what we do with the archived film, you know, how we can use that elsewhere, how we, you know, might continue the conversation on following the live event with people that had, you know, because there's lots of questions and perhaps everyone might feel that, might feel that all their questions weren't answered, and that's something I think we're definitely going to look at for the next series of performances. Just showing you here, even 2 months after the Pablo Bronstein performance on the YouTube channel, people saying, brilliant, like it, so that's nice to know. But people are watching them archived on the Tate website as well as the YouTube channel. They are still being watched post-performance. Yeah, so I'd just like to say as well, thank you for watching.
We've got time to just take a couple of questions if there are any.
Quick one.
Yeah.
Fantastic use of commenting and social media feeding back. Did you decide early on that the subject matter really needed that kind of commenting loop, so that, well, because it was live art, you know, it's really interesting coming from an arts organisation, from a place that is all about that you thought, well, really we've got to engage people, we've got to add that feedback loop of engagement because it's really important.
Yeah, that's precisely, that's at the heart of this project, most definitely. It's almost, you know, the artist was in a room with no audience, so we kind of deliberately almost put that barrier there to say, look, there's no one in there, there's not a person for you to feed off. You know, how does that feel as an artist, as part of your practice? And certainly for, you know, members of the public to certainly give their opinion and answer their questions to an artist, which is just something which is not every day that you do in an art gallery, or if you go to you see live art in a gallery, you might watch them and have a question, but you speak with your peers or your friends, and having that platform to do that was certainly at the core of what this project and why we wanted to do it.
So live streaming really is not just live streaming, it's live loop back. It's commenting as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely that dialogue, that the to and fro is definitely, I think, a part of the performance as a whole, if you could say that. And that's something we discussed with the artists at the time, because it was so fresh for them and it was fresh for us and the curators. Some of the Q&A say, what do you make of this? What do you think about it? And they're like, oh, I need to think about this. I don't know yet. I haven't seen any reaction. And so in that Q&A, they get their heads around it. But I think a few of the artists certainly wanted to see what people have been saying, what's the reaction. And also they were quite pleased that there were questions, comments and critical questions as well.
I thought it was quite interesting that as you went through the time between performance and interview was shorter. So there's less lessons we learned about consumers, an online live stream. But I was also curious as well, because you sent out
48,000, yeah.
I mean, in these early experiments with this stuff, what were the kind of figures that were kind of coming in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with the first performance with Jerome, we had about a few thousand, like 2,000 at its peak. That was the peak viewing figure. But we felt that performance specifically was promoted on the YouTube channel, on the YouTube homepage. So the Tate channel was promoted throughout that day. So it's on the YouTube homepage, and that certainly affected our viewing figures for that specific performance. It really did, but at the same time it meant that the type of people who were watching, there was certainly our non-core audience, which is we want a wide spectrum of people to view it, but at the same time, people who most likely aren't used to watching art, let alone art online. And so there was a lot of questions initially that were just way off and weren't particularly relevant, and people would, they'd look at it and go, oh, what's this? And then might go off again. But that performance, we did have high retention as well. And there's a few comment streams that we've been able to look at since the performance that were quite interesting. So people who started off saying, don't understand, what is this? And then they would watch it and say, oh, this is interesting. What is the Tate doing? Why are you doing this? And then some actually really good questions by the end about what is live and performance online? Are you trying to show us a new way of thinking? And it's like, oh, you've had a journey there. I mean, that didn't happen for everyone, certainly, but there was a few people that did, and that's interesting for us to see. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, what about
after that, people watching them post. Well, I've got, so from the end of June, some of the figures, because these were spread out. The last performance was in June, but the first one was in March. And they, as archived videos, both on our YouTube channel and on the Tate website as well, collectively they've had about a couple of thousand views to up to like 5,000 views, depending on the video.
Thanks very much.
Okay.